Welcome to the Not in the Job Description podcast. I'm Scott McLaughlin.
And I'm Chris Kiernan.
No matter what type of job you've had, there were situations that happened to you during work that you couldn't wait to tell your friends about.
We interview a variety of guests about some of their crazy stories from work, from entry-level food service industry jobs to doctors and attorneys. We will explore funny, gross, embarrassing, scary, and sometimes almost unbelievable stories that people have experienced while on the job.
Keep in mind that our guests or the companies they work for may be masked in order to protect the innocent, or maybe even the guilty. Today we talk to Dave, who is in the real estate business. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, how's it going, Dave?
Another day in paradise.
So Chris and I know Dave because we happen to be in the same circles when it comes to playing poker. And it just so happens that there's also a lot of people who play poker with us who are in the real estate business. It's weird. It's like 50% of them are. So we hear our fair share of stories. And Dave's always good to share a few here and there. So thanks again for coming to talk to us. And I think the thing we normally do is just ask, what got you started in the business?
Well, as a young man, my dad had rental properties, and so I had the opportunity to go and work on the houses with him. And I learned everything that I know about working on houses with my dad. And it seems to be a really enjoyable way for me to spend my time fixing up houses and what have you. But I found that I can sell, and I make a lot more money using my mouth and my brain than my back. So that's kind of how that's gone for me.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I will say that in the time I've known Dave, we're also like Facebook friends. And I always say that Dave puts the real in real estate because he's the realist when it comes to helping people out. I've seen him help his clients out that maybe have like an FHA loan that won't go through because there's something wrong with the house. I don't know, banisters aren't right. So he'll go in there and help them put the banisters up. I've seen him do things to help his clients, and I think that's awesome. I think your customers have to appreciate that.
Well, and the vast majority of them do. I mean, if you need paint, I paint. You know, there's been back steps that we're missing. That needs to be done. I'm right over there. I'll rebuild your entire deck for you if you need to.
I have to. Is there anybody else who does this? Because I have never known a realtor who's going to be like, yeah, I guess I can help with those steps. They'd be like, get that fixed.
No, not that I'm aware of. But I have a great story. I'm fixing the siding on a house up here in Westerville. Mm-hmm. Climb up onto the roof, fix the siding, come back down, and my ladder had fallen. This is the middle of the day, and my phone is in my car. So I got no way to signal anybody. And so after a few minutes of deliberation, decide a running jump off the roof is the best way for me to get down, right?
Oh, and I hope the neighbors have a security system. Go on.
So I'm playing in my run. I'm playing in the jump, and I've got the spot picked out where I'm going to land. Well, apparently you can cut grass all even, but the dirt underneath isn't. So I run and I jump, and the whole idea is to tumble, like take 3 steps, somersault, and bring it up like Mary Lou Retton, right?
Right.
And no, I hit the ground, my foot falls into a small hole, sprain all the ligaments on the top of my foot, and I limp back to the car, go to the hospital. And my reward was a $100 gift card from the client who ultimately didn't buy the house.
Oh, no good deed goes unpunished, brother.
I have those stories, yes.
Oh, that's funny. I mean, when you talk about the real estate business, for people who don't know anyone in it, and again, Chris and I have an ancillary kind of side attachment to it just from all the people we know, but I would think all you do is, okay, you want to see some houses? Here's some. We'll show them to you. Which one do you want? We'll make sure all your paperwork's right and that your offer is in the right realm. And like, it doesn't seem very exciting, but I got to tell you, I've done some research a little bit in the real estate business, and there are parts of it that are kind of freaking dangerous.
So it was last year. I'm out with buyers. I'm following them from one house to the next. As we're sitting at a stoplight getting ready to turn left on Broad, there is an active shootout that takes place. Literally gunfire back and forth. I watch a kid get dropped. Another car comes flying up. They start shooting at the people that shot the other person. I mean, it's bedlam, right? Crazy madness going on. Well, the light turns green, and we take a left on the street. We go up a couple of blocks, take a right to our next house. At which point I get out of the car and walk up to my client's car, and she is bawling. I mean, just distraught. And my first words are, So what do you think of the neighborhood? You know, this was not, she is from a small town in southern Ohio. She did not expect anything along those lines. But that's my only shootout in 17 years. So,
That's pretty good.
that's not a bad average.
Well, you know, in doing the research, there's a website called 360coveragepros.com, and they had some information that I was just amazed because, again, I've worked in banking pretty much the majority of my career. And it said, you know, how risky is your job? And according to a 2018 Inman survey, 9% of real estate agents said they've been attacked or threatened at work. 9%.
Well, okay. I'm part of that 9%. So, and I don't know how I find myself in such adventures, but here we are, right? So I have a client out and we're looking at multiple houses. We're out in the country. We go to this house where the seller is at home. And so I walk up and, you know, wave and introduce myself. And he says, I'm going to tell you right now, you're not doing an inspection on this house. I said, please explain why you would say such a thing. I can't advocate to my buyer not to do an inspection on the house. And so at that point, he's like, you can get the fuck out of here and take your goddamn client screaming and hollering and what have you. So I walk back to her car and I just kind of hold my hand up and present the seller who's frothing at the mouth, screaming and hollering. And she's like, yeah, I don't think this is the house for us.
Yeah.
And no, I think you're right. Let's go ahead and go. Well, I walk from her car and I'm heading back down. This is a long driveway. It's probably a 100-yard driveway. This dude comes out and jumps on the hood of my car and is just sitting there. He's like, I told you to leave. Yes, sir. I'm trying to do just that. And so then he kicks my car and I was like, nah, and we're not going to have that. So I shove this man off the hood of my car. He rolls down, falls on the gravel driveway and comes up swinging. Oh. And when I tell you comes up swinging, I'm talking about haymakers, just wildly. And I'm bobbing and weaving and slipping these punches and what have you, at which point he kind of tuckers himself out, staggers over to the yard, picks up a tree branch. And when I say tree branch, I'm talking like a 4-foot tree branch as thick as your wrist and starts swinging this at me. Well, I'm slightly nimble. So I slip all this and he can't get me. So he decides to start beating on my car. Oh, no. The car that's sitting out in your street right now still got the dents from that day. No. I got dents in the hood. I've got dents in the side panel. My side mirror still got a crack running through it.
Did you call the cops on this guy?
No. No. Wait a minute. So my client's husband is a cop. And so she calls him and he's like, yeah, that's outside of my jurisdiction. There's not a whole lot that I can do. I was like, do you have anybody down here that could maybe
swing by?
Maybe do a wellness check on this gentleman because he is not well. But that, it was without incident. I mean, I didn't take any punches. I didn't get hit with the branch. My car's still dinged up, but I'm not here to impress you with my car. Unlike many real estate agents, I don't drive a white Mercedes.
Right. Well, you talk about inspections. We had a friend of ours in here talking a few weeks ago, and that can be a dangerous job, just, going up in front of people's houses and stuff. And he told some stories about that too, just people not wanting you on their property. But that's just a dangerous kind of thing. You have to walk up to people's property. Even crazy people sell homes, right? Well,
it really doesn't. It's a thing that you can't discriminate against, right? Sure. Crazy people are allowed to own homes just as well as normal folks.
Yeah, Chris has a house. Yeah,
right. Right. Anyone can be a homeowner. Take your prime example right here. Well, so during home inspections, I've seen some wild things that I would not otherwise know. A very good example of that. There was a home inspection where there was a pool noodle that was used to connect 2 pieces of copper pipe in order to run the water from one to the next, furnished with a beautiful array of duct tape on either end.
We had that discussion.
Yeah.
Duct tape's fantastic.
It's amazing. And you would have never known it until the home inspector gets up there and takes a look at it.
That was actually one of the questions I was going to ask, if you've seen like some real DIY disasters, right? You go in and maybe they're trying to cover it up because they're trying to sell the house, but after further inspection, not necessarily from the inspector, but just while you're walking through, you're looking like, yeah, I don't think that's up to code.
Well, I've been through houses that you literally need to take a breath of fresh oxygen before you walk into the house.
Yeah.
Prime example, we walk into this house and there's mold The rainbow color, like it is bright red and greens and what have you. It is hanging down from the ceiling to where you could just grab a handful of it like cotton candy.
Wow.
Just as nasty as it could ever be. You should see the pictures of the house that I just went and looked at today that caught fire last week, and the entire roof is missing. I mean, I've got pictures. It's amazing.
Crazy.
Guess what? Still on the market.
Yeah.
They deeply discounted it.
Sure,
but you know, it's still for sale.
Well, I should hope it was deeply discounted. My God.
Well, you know, I mean,
BYOR.
Bring your own
roof.
Oh, okay.
I thought you guys would
that's
catch
good.
up with me.
That's
Yeah,
good. No,
thank you.
well, I was trying to pair the R. I didn't know that we were going for that.
Well, you know, and I've heard people often, you know, we've had lots of neighbors and friends that have moved around, and they'll say, you know, they wonder if it's even worth having a real estate agent. So, you know, I think everyone questions that, and in doing some of the research, and by the way, this wasn't brought from like realtors.com. This was somebody who was just doing research on real estate in general. They said the typical for sale by owner home sold for 17% less than a home listed with a realtor.
Correct. Yeah, Zillow's garbage. I don't know if you're aware of that. You
I'm
know,
not, no.
Zillow is 100% garbage. The county auditor looks at the tax value, not what the market value is. So so Joe homeowner doesn't know what the market is like and is taking it as advice or his cues from Zillow or from the county auditor, is shortchanging himself every single time. They don't know how to negotiate. They don't know what the terms of a contract, the closing costs that go into it, what they're supposed to be paying for, what the buyer's supposed to be paying for. There's a reason that realtors exist, and we are, I dare to say underpaid, but we are definitely paid for the services that we
You
bring.
provide value.
100%.
Yeah.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, I could see that. Another one of the stats that kind of freaked me out, we were talking to somebody a while ago who was in the construction business, and I was amazed at the average age of person in the construction business. But I read the median age of realtors in the United States is 52.
In Central Ohio, it's 57,
Oh, my gosh.
which means half of the agents are older than that and half are younger than that.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, but if you go to any of these parties, like the cocktail mixers or what have you,
Yeah.
you are definitely aware of the age of the folks that you're standing amongst.
I mean, there's some of that's probably good, right? I don't know that I want a 21-year-old realtor. Like, you just don't have the life experience. You haven't seen as many things. But I don't know that I want a 78-year-old realtor either. I don't know. It's just one of those things where I'd rather have somebody who has a little bit more experience in it than, you know, somebody who's brand new. But I'm surprised that we have it's such a older age as the average.
Well, and some of the older age ones, right? They're just kind of maybe doing it part time. They want just a quick sell. They don't maybe want to put the work into it that maybe that Dave does or other people. Maybe
or the opposite. The younger people are like, hey, this is my side gig.
Right.
You see a lot of people that do the side gig.
Sure, absolutely. You know, you got your stay-at-home moms or school teachers or firemen or, you know, people that have a day off here and there that are helping out friends and family and what have you. In Central Ohio, the average agent sells 4.1 houses a year. Okay. There's
Wow.
10,000 agents in Central Ohio. Currently, 2,500 houses for sale. Okay. So on average, if you're selling 4 a year, but I sell 80, that means there's 20 agents that sell 0 houses a year.
Right.
Yeah, and let's face it, even if those houses were $1 million each at 4 a year, you're not making much money.
No.
That's your side gig.
No, the average agent, and mind you, this was, I think, pre-pandemic, but the average agent makes like $23,000 a year. It's not sustainable to live a life on that. So hopefully you have a regular person job or a spouse that is bringing in the lion's share of the money.
Or I know a lot of realtors too that get in the business not only for their client, but also for themselves. I mean, I think you do a little bit of purchasing for investment property as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. So this year alone, I am on my 4th flip. So I buy houses that are pretty distressed. And thankfully, I shake a lot of hands and kiss a lot of babies. So I know people with skills in order in which to bring in the plumber, the HVAC guy, all people that I've worked with in the past who normally I would refer out to my clients. But when I'm doing it, I call them up and say, hey, look, this is for me. And so, I mean, they're right there for me to get the jobs done. So it's very handy to know so many people in the business, be able to pass them around. But then when it comes time for me to personally use them, I call on them to say, hey, look, this is a Dave Truitt special right here.
Right.
Yeah. So in my experience with regard to flipping houses, all right, let's see, the one that I'm currently working on, we took 5 20-yard dumpsters of material out of this crack house, right? And I call it a crack house lovingly because it was more of a heroin house, but people don't really associate that with anything other than,
Right.
yeah, poor management. So hundreds of needles come out of this place. Got a call from the cops this morning that someone's sleeping in the garage, and it's glorious. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and they're like, "What do you want us to do?" And I was like, "Ask them to leave."
Right. Yeah. What are my options?
Right? Yeah. Ask them to defecate somewhere else.
Take them home with you.
Right,
I mean,
please.
whatever.
Is the back of your car empty? Maybe that's a good spot for them.
You could solve 2 problems. Maybe they know how to paint. You could say,
That's
hey,
true,
tell them to paint
yeah.
the living room while they're there. I
Oh,
don't know.
listen, a crackhead starts strong, but the finish
It
work
never
is
ends well.
No, not at all.
That old fable.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
So, I imagine you've run into some situations with houses for flip, or for that matter, just you're looking for stuff for your clients. You have to see some shit, right? I mean, you have to see some stuff. I mean, Chris brought up, from an inspection point of view, but have you ended up buying something because you're like, yeah, they're going to sell this for a song, and I'm going to do a lot of work on it, but again, you're going to have to clean up the crack.
Right, well, the crack is only one thing. So last year, I meet a woman who's owned this investment property for about 15 years, but lives out of town and has decided now is the time to get rid of it. So I meet her last May over at the house, and we walk in together. Inside the house is like 4 generations of humans that are the filthiest humans I've ever seen in my life. Not a one of them had showered in weeks. At least that would be my guess. It could have been months. Filthy, filthy humans, right? There's just trash everywhere. There's tar dripping down the walls, cigarette butts on the floor. I mean, just
That's gross.
mold coming down the walls. And that was a bedroom in the basement, like leaking water outside, and there's just mold coming down the walls, right? Yeah. So my suggestion was, hey, how about we clean these people and their stuff out before we try and put it on the market, right? So come August, she calls me back and she's like, all right, Dave, we're ready. All right, I've got everybody out of the house. Let's go back over and look at it. You tell me what you think. I get back over there. I kid you not. There's 3/4 of a mattress with 1/4 of it chewed off, right? I don't know if it was the termites or what the story was, the dogs, who knows. There's a half of a couch. There's just clothes laying around, cigarette butts. There's just it's nasty. There's mold everywhere, what have you, right? Well, as we're walking around, I start to itching, right? And I'm just like, what? I look down, I am covered in fleas.
Oh my gosh.
And when I say I'm covered in fleas, I am covered in fleas. Now, I don't know what this old lady's pH level was because the fleas were not on her at all.
She's grown accustomed. They like her, maybe.
No, they didn't. They weren't on her.
Yeah, right.
So I had taken about as much as I could. I'm in the house for maybe 7-8 minutes. And I was like, all right, we got to go outside. I can't take this anymore. Oh my God, they're on me. Right. So we go outside and we're standing in the driveway and I'm doing my thing. I'm talking her up and like, this is how the process is going to go and what have you. And all the while I'm a picking and I'm a flicking and scratching and what have you. And it's her and her daughter, who's probably my age, mid 40s, what have you. And I was like, ladies, listen, I apologize, but I have got to take my shoes and my socks off. I can't scratch my feet with my shoes on and they're on my feet, right? So I take my shoes and my socks off and I'm still talking and I'm still, listen, we do this, we do that, and here's how the market's treating you and here's the comps and what have you. All the while, I'm still just flicking them off me and picking, like, it's terrible.
This is like an SNL skit.
No,
Go on.
Oh, no, it gets more enjoyable than an SNL skit. Okay, so ladies, you don't have to worry. I'm wearing a wife beater, but I got to take this polo off, right? And so I'm standing there. It's August. It's noon. It's 93 degrees out, and I'm sweating like a whore in church, right? So, but I take my polo off, and they're underneath. They're on my wife beater. They're on me. They're on me, brother. And I am like, oh dear God, ladies. Okay, so this is exactly the words I said. Ladies, y'all don't have to stay for the show, but I am going to take the rest of this off. I pull my wife beater off. I take my khakis off. I am standing there in my boxer briefs, still trying to swing this deal about how we're going to sell it for her, right? And she's like, oh, and you got to get the mold. You got to get the house bombed. You got to knock down the 3-foot grass all around the house, all of this, right? I'm trying to go over and she's like, dag nabbit. Listen, I want to sell it. I'm just willing to sell it for what I owe.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I'm like, do I really want to do this? Do I really want to? Okay, what do you owe? And she says like 90,000. Oh, well, the neighborhood's selling, give or take 200. But I understand that I'm going to have to deal with the mold and the fleas and all of everything.
You got some investment to make, right?
There is going to be some sweat equity going into this bad boy. So, we finish up and I was like, okay, that's all well and good. I take my clothes and everything that has been laying in the yard and I just take my drawers off and I throw everything in the trunk. I'm driving home naked. And I call my wife to reiterate the story I just shared with you gentlemen. And I say, honey, I need you to bring me out 2 things. I need you to bring me out a trash bag and a pair of basketball shorts because I'm not trying to get out in our driveway in our neighborhood, just Big Willie style, you know what I mean? So
you like the neighbors, but not that much.
No, not well. There's this one, but no. She can't. No. So I tell my missus, I was like, I need you to bring me all this stuff, and oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna buy a house. And hello,
yeah,
honey, are you still on the phone? And she's like, you mean the house that you just left with the fleas and the mold and the what have you?
The very one.
That's the one, sweetheart. The beauty of this is you bomb the house, bomb it twice, right? Because the first bomb didn't kill all the roaches and bed bugs and the fleas and the mold and everything that's in there. And that's okay. But I go out, we finally buy the house. I get to work on it. The yard's 3 foot tall. There's vines growing all over the house and through the trees and everything else. So I'm out there ripping everything down and tearing it up and what have you, and catch the world's worst case of poison oak I've ever had in my life. And when I say it was the worst thing, I had poison oak on my eyelids. I had it on the crack of my ass, like it was my armpits. I had lotion and creams on me for weeks.
How long ago was this, Dave?
This was last August.
Oh,
well, man. We closed at the end of August and went into September. So last September, and I'm getting a shot in the ass with, it's still during COVID. Yeah. And so I'm waiting out inside, out of the doctor's office, just a scratching and what have you. Like, come on, ladies, like get me in here. I just need a shot. You can bring it out to the car. I'll hang my ass out the car window. And you can just give it to me right. There's not a whole inspection that needs to be done. I know what's happening. Mm-hmm. Give me some steroids and let me on my way. But they kept me out there for 3 hours because they were letting one person in at a time. It was glorious.
Yeah,
right?
That's torture.
Well, okay. So there's a silver lining to all this. Yeah. Beautiful thing. Get the house turned around. I was going to keep it as a rental, but I made it too darn nice. Right. And I put so much work into this house that I knew if I put renters in there and they tore it up, that I'd lose my ever loving mind. So I ended up selling it.
Nice.
And turned a nice little profit.
Awesome.
So if you're willing to get really deep in the elbow grease, there's plenty of opportunities out there for everybody.
You're a better person than me because I wouldn't be like bug bombing those things. It would have been a firebomb. I'd have just started from scratch. It would have been arson from the very beginning. There's no way that I would even go near that house with all that shit in it. Well, that's just not me.
You let me know when you interview a homeowner's insurance agent, and I'll talk with them about how I get that policy, the firebomb policy.
It just happened again. It's weird.
Strangely enough, it happens every 3 months. Yeah, who knew?
So you've talked about going out and just seeing maybe some weird DIY stuff. What about, have you ever been on a showing where you're walking through the house and maybe somebody didn't clean up everything that they should have, or you just, ever see some weird paraphernalia just hanging out?
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah. You walk in a house, you're like, wow, these people smoke a lot of pot, Yeah. No, people, I'm on a listing appointment and they're giving me a tour, and the daughter walks out of the bathroom and they take me in to show the bathroom, like, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't know that she was using the bathroom for that. Right, like it was very apparent what just took place. Right. It blew up the bathroom, It's, I've seen all kinds of strange things. Was showing a house one time, went all the way up into the attic, the finished third floor space, and there is the largest crackhead I've ever seen in my entire life. And this dude was scared out of his mind, but I kid you not, he had to be 7 foot tall and 300 pounds. And I come around the corner and he's scared standing in the corner, and oh, Jesus, sweet Mary, like, what are you doing? He's like, I know I'm not supposed to be here, sir. Please don't tell on me.
You're like, dude, I'm not doing anything to you.
Right. No.
Right. So he was just like squatting in the attic, just like kind of living there in the attic.
I didn't see a pillow and blanket, but like he was there. Right. And I don't know if he started on the first floor, heard us coming, and snuck his 300-pound ass all the way up to the third floor, but scared the ever-loving bejesus out of me, and that was enjoyable for everybody.
Now, anytime you're dealing with customers, especially let's face it, if you've got to take them places, that's just one more layer of intricacy where things can go wrong. Like anytime you have to either put them in a car, walk them into an elevator, take them upstairs, walk them into unfamiliar places. Have you had any either interesting or embarrassing situations with your client or your customer?
Well, I've had a few clients fall. So we are looking at an older house, coming down the stairs, which are not as deep as today's standard stairs. They are a greater pitch. And so I'm walking behind this young lady, and she just goes down the staircase. And when I mean just bump, like 7 or 8 steps, and just crying, and we find out that she broke her ankle. Broke her ankle. So she walks it off like a champ.
Yeah.
But then every subsequent showing after that, she's there in crutches, right? And starts showing up with her dad, right? And this is in the winter, so she's crutching it up and down the stairs with her dad. I'm holding the crutches, or I'm giving her an elbow, and she's 1 foot hopping up and down these stairs and what have you.
What a trooper.
Trooper, like truly like strong-willed young lady.
Yeah.
She's amazing. Let's see. Falling down. I've fallen down. I tried to jump over a fence, caught my trail leg, trip, fall,
I wish I could have seen that.
tumble
Dave.
through the backyard. And my clients are, oh my God, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I bounced. Don't you worry about that,
Between that and you jumping off a roof, I wish there was some security camera footage. I could sell that to our mutual friends.
If I had video footage of all the things I've seen and done over my years, I'm telling you what, Funniest Home Videos would hire me as a writer. The worst was, I had a woman that was probably 8 months pregnant, and there was a staircase where it's like 2 steps towards the wall. It turns 45 degrees or 90 degrees and goes up the stairs.
Yeah.
She's 8 months pregnant, and we're just standing there talking, and she misses that the staircase is at a 45-degree angle and falls. And when I say falls, I'm talking about just comes down and hits the ground. I'm freaking out because these are wonderful people. She jumps up and says, don't worry, it's my 4th kid.
I was going to ask her for water broke.
No, she's only 8 months, but but her reaction was trooper. She's like, the 4th kid,
It's the 4th kid. She'd be like, we'll just have the kid here. It's fine.
Right. Well, or like you didn't mind if the 4th one had brain damage. You know what I mean? Like the other 3 can watch the wobbly one.
I got
at the
plenty.
End.
Right.
She had that extra hand to help break her fall.
That's hilarious. Now, we've got, again, friends that are also in the business, and I'm not going to name this person because, they clearly would not tell this story, but I'm curious if you had anything like this or if you've heard about this one. Somebody who's in our group of friends said that they were showing a house for somebody, and they opened the door, and they had their client with them, and they knew nobody was supposed to be in the house, but they started hearing things upstairs. So he's like, maybe they're still in the house. He looks at his watch, like, am I early? And sure enough, like, there's somebody up there. He walks up the stairs. It's 2 other realtors who are married, but not to each other, up in the bedroom.
Putting in work.
That's right.
Making a deal.
Doing some estimates. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Have you heard of this kind of thing?
Well, I have. I'm not here to judge. Adults will do what adults do, and so.
But hotels are not that expensive.
They're more expensive than an open house, though. Or set your showing and make sure there's no overlapping showings. And when your time is up, wrap it up, baby. Like, this is not something to where you may get bonus time. Like, right. I can appreciate the level of, like, you've gone more than a half an hour at this act, but there may be other humans here shortly.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you're supposed to make the place smell like cookies, but nothing else.
Yeah, that's a whole different aroma. Now, I have shown houses that were like in the late afternoon. So after kids get out of school, but before the parents come home. And there are what I imagine to be 2 high schoolers just getting at it.
Yeah.
And they were not aware that we were coming. So we hear the different noises and what have you, and I'm loud coming up the steps, bang, bang, like I'm trying to warn you. Impending person approaching, right? And nope, they don't hear a thing. They're getting it in. So just bang on the door a couple of times. Hey, we're here to see the house. Let us know when the room's available. And my clients are just like, what are we supposed to do? I was like, wait for them to finish. I don't know what to tell. I don't know what to tell you.
That's crazy.
Unless you just want to go in now, Now, I've also shown houses where people literally are asleep in the bed. We don't know that they're in the bed. We're in the room, not aware that someone's in there. And then they roll over and snore a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. Great. Now, here we go. We're going to disturb grandma. She's in there trying to get her afternoon nap in or evening nap. And we're in there looking at the house. Unbeknownst to us, she's in there too.
Yeah, how awkward is that for your client? What do you do? Whisper like, shh, like this is just normal?
Right.
Well, it's not uncommon, you know what I mean? So I just calm them down, like, hey, don't worry about it. Let's let her get her sleep. Did you see everything? Here's a quick look in the closet. All right, good. Let's go to the next room.
Let me ask you, when someone's in the bed and you don't realize it, maybe that startles you a little bit. So we had somebody on the show a few episodes ago that were paranormal tour guides. Have you ever been in a house doing a showing and you're just hearing creepy noises or something that's a little off, but it's not somebody in the house? It's just, I don't want to say haunted, but maybe that's the feeling that you got out of it.
So there have been twice I have seen what I would call an altar in the basement. Like, I don't know what has taken place, what kind of seances and or sacrifices that have taken place in these houses. So and this is not, let's go, it's not okay. Now, I will tell you, my dad owns a house and you don't have to disclose if there's a ghost. Right? He has had 3 different tenants, none of which that knew each other, all tell him about the old man in the basement. And
I'm out.
No. And he doesn't ever bother anybody, doesn't make any noise.
Okay.
Doesn't eat much, but they've all said, like, has anyone ever mentioned the old man in the basement? And my dad's like, you know what? I think I have heard about that. He's not going to say, he's our specter that, kind of keeps an eye on the laundry.
He doesn't pay rent, but he doesn't eat much.
He doesn't, right, absolutely. Yeah. He won't bother you, but the dog won't go downstairs. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So along Chris's line of questioning, because I've had this experience once, have you ever walked in a house and you can just feel bad juju, like there's something? I mean, I've had that a couple of times in my life where we've walked in homes and I'm like, oh no, something, there's just some, and trust me, if anybody that knows me, I am not this guy. I am not into paranormal stuff. I'm really not into ghosts or anything like that. But I've walked into places and gone, there's just something unsettling. Have you ran into that?
Well, so in setting expectations with folks, I tell them, listen, if we love the house, we've got an hour here. If you don't like it and in 30 seconds you decide it's not the one, turn around and go. We're not doing anybody favors hanging out. Mm-hmm. So I try to set the expectations up front that if this isn't going for you, fantastic, let's leave. But if you love it, we got all day. But it's really something to where I leave it up to them. I am not here to dictate the time that we spend there or their level of enjoyment or to try and sell anything. If you like it, we're there. And if you don't, let's go.
Kim and I, she had a friend, like a high school friend that lived in Mount Vernon, Ohio. And I know they used to live in this really small house, and she called Kim one time, and we weren't really close with them, but she told her, hey, we just bought this new house. And in Mount Vernon, they've got some really nice homes, like in the downtown area. And so we got invited to her house. We go in there, it's big brick house. And immediately when we walked in, you could smell like fire, like something had burned in there. We didn't say anything for a while. Eventually, they start telling us the story. Like, oh, yeah, we were looking for homes. We finally found this one. We got a good deal on it. And come to find out, they got a good deal because the previous homeowner died in it when they were smoking a cigarette and fell asleep and essentially died of smoke inhalation right there in the bedroom that was right off the room that we were in. And the smell of smoke was still there. Not cigarette smoke, but fire from what this lady died in. Do people have to disclose deaths in a home?
Not in Ohio. So yeah, but I would imagine burning flesh to smell poorly. You know, you'd want to fumigate, I
Yeah.
would think. Like, do your, you know, especially if you're going to have guests over.
Yeah, this was more of a campfirey kind of smell.
Oh, okay. All right,
yeah,
good. Not burning hair.
No, it wasn't burning hair. It wasn't like, Aborigines eating somebody. It was just more of a, this is a weird smell. And what made it even worse, we said, well, what room did that happen in? And they pointed over there where the baby's room is. They put the baby in that room.
No.
Yeah.
Right. And we expect that child to be raised normal, or is like they're going to have some issues later in life, I would imagine.
Either that or there's a nice old lady watching over them all the time.
Correct.
Yeah,
The smell of a crispy Afghan, it's not for everybody, but apparently for this child of ours, it's going to be just right. Oh, that's terrible.
So now sometimes people have to sell their house, maybe because it's a divorce situation or something like that. So obviously you don't want to be in the middle of that contentious situation, but have there been times maybe at the closing table is where it all comes out, or during the showings, or, or maybe there's some domestic issues going on?
Well, I've heard a story of a gentleman looking to sell a house, and it's in Ohio, we have what's called dower rights, where the spouse has a 1/3 interest in any property that's bought or sold, right? He's trying to sell the house without I don't know if it was without his wife's knowledge or without her consent, what have you. But he shows up with his girlfriend, who has his wife's driver's license, and order in which to sell the house. Now, the title company, they have an obligation to ask, are you married and to each other?
Right.
At which point, the young lady kind of freezes, locks up a little bit, right? She doesn't know what to do. And this is a really normal, kind of easy question to answer.
Sure.
Right.
The title lady then picks up the driver's license, and the picture on the driver's license is not the woman sitting at the table, right? Okay, that's not allowed, right?
No,
So you
right.
can't sell the house. I had one. Oh my goodness, this is classic. We're sitting at the table, and we used to do round table closings where the buyers would sit on one side of the table, the sellers would sit on the other,
Yeah.
with the title person at the head of the table, handing out
Shuffling
papers.
out papers like cards.
Like
Yes.
cards, very much so. And there's a document that's in there, and it's called the name affidavit. And it is all of the ways that your name has ever shown on a credit report, right? So it's got your first name, middle initial, first name, middle name spelled out, no middle name, your maiden name, what have you. Women always have the longer list of the name affidavits due to our cultural thing where women change names and what have you. Well, the husband and wife are sitting there, and he's looking over at her list, and he says, wait a minute. This isn't her right here. And
Oh, no.
And she says to him, without batting an eye, she says, don't worry, my next husband won't know about you either.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Okay. You want to hear what silence is? I'm telling you what, it was so quiet in that room, you could have heard a pin drop on a shag carpet. It was, and no one knew what to say. And I've got the sellers, and they're the buyers. And I was like, God, I don't even know if this is going to continue
Right,
on
yeah.
at this point.
Right.
She is telling him, like, she was married before. And not only did he not know that, but at some point she was going to replace him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that her next husband wouldn't know about him either.
It could have been worse. She could have said, how do you think we got the down payment for this house?
OnlyFans, baby. We're putting in work over here, right? Oh, goodness gracious. No, so that was terrible to take place at the closing table, and everybody just looking at each other. And all I can think to ask is like, anybody want a glass of water?
Yeah.
Right.
I am here to kind of, because somebody had to break the tension somehow.
Well, sure.
Well, that was it. Anybody up for a water? Like, that's all that I could say.
Did they finish closing it out?
They did.
All right, good.
Now, I would have loved to have been a fly in the
Yeah.
car on that drive home for them.
Yeah.
Just to,
Right.
There might have been some marriage therapy going on after that.
or physical violence.
Either
I
or,
mean,
yeah.
I don't know what happened to her last husband. She might have killed him. You
Right.
know what? He bought her a house. She buried him under the base, under the
Right.
furnace.
Time to move to the new house. Right?
Correct. And, Black Widow style, she's moving up in the world. She keeps
Yeah.
getting bigger and better houses, and these husbands keep disappearing.
Yeah, I mean, she's got a conscience. She didn't feel right bringing the new husband to live over top of the old one that's in the basement buried under the
You
concrete.
You
yeah.
never know. Yeah, no, it's terrible. But yeah, so that's funny. I had an offer where the buyers offered 83 ounces of gold as the purchase price for a house.
Wow.
And the sellers say, well, what happens if the value of gold goes up? Well, then
It's 83 ounces.
we'll pay you more for the
That's right.
house, right? Well, what if it goes down?
That's
well,
right.
Then we're buying it for less, like this. And
Yeah.
so my only suggestion was like, take that gold to the bank, get it turned into actual
Immediately.
legal tender,
Yeah.
and then we'll talk about what your offer is. But like 83 ounces of gold. Now, mind you, this is 15 years ago, and I don't know what the price of gold was,
Right.
but 83 ounces of gold is what we're offering you for your house.
Get
Now
the
they're just
calculator out. Yeah.
No, all of a sudden now I'm Googling the price of gold. Like, now what is the carat? You know, I mean, if you're talking 14 karat, that's unacceptable. You know, you want 20 karat, maybe we're in it. 24 karat, the house is yours today.
Right.
And we'll leave the dishes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, there's a lot of variables that go into that. So that was not an acceptable offer, but I mean, amusing to say the least.
So at the closing, then, have you ever had a deal fall through? I mean, obviously you've had deals fall through, but have there been reasons that were just unfathomable? Like you go home, you're like, I can't even believe that deal fell through. Like something really strange or weird, or
Yeah. Didn't change the color of the banister upstairs. Something ridiculous.
No, nothing that extreme. I mean, once you get to the closing table, I mean, it's pretty much set in stone. You've done your walkthrough, the final numbers are there and what have you. And at the closing table, it's usually an enjoyable experience,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Someone's getting a new house.
We
Right.
finally made it. You know, the sellers are selling, the buyers are buying. Sometimes you'll have a very combative buyer and seller, right? So you don't want them all at the table at the same time. So you've got the sellers in one room, the buyers in the other room, and the title agent taking paperwork back and forth across the hallway so that these people don't actually have to physically meet.
Right.
Because they might actually physically meet at
Right,
that point,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So you don't want the two dudes in a pissing contest all of a sudden trying to duke it out at the closing table. That's no fun for anybody.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's fun for me, but it's not fun for anybody else involved. You know, it's entertainment. I wish we could get some, like, if that's going to go down, like, have the wives fight first, you know, have the ladies go at it
And perhaps an octagon. I'm just making a suggestion.
with Jell-O.
It's just something to think about.
Yeah, no, I don't really, I don't know. Physical violence is not the answer.
Well, I have to ask you this one, though, because I'm thinking about, like, the past 10 years or so, the market's been really good from a rate perspective. You've started to see a lot of people take advantage of that because the money has been next to free when it comes to a lot of things. But now that we're starting to get to the point where the price of money has gone up a little bit, you're starting to see a little more scarcity in the homes. If you had to give a new buyer and or new seller a piece of information in the market right now to help them, what is the one piece of advice you would give?
Well, it's real estate's still the very best investment that you can make. Your good friend, you know, Warren Buffett, you know,
Yeah, I know, Warren. We go way back.
Yeah, absolutely, right? So he says it's the only way for common people to become rich in this country is real estate, right? So this is my advice to everyone. And no matter what you buy, when you buy it, if you sit on it long enough, it'll always be worth more than when you bought it. It's an appreciating asset. Yeah. So that's my advice to everyone. And regardless if your interest rate is 2.5% or 7.5% or 12.5%, that money is always going to build equity. You know, the value of your home traditionally, now we've had dips in the market and things like that, but no matter what you do over a long enough time frame, that is always a great investment. It's going to make you money.
Yeah, they're not making more land anywhere.
Well, that's something my dad always said, like the good Lord isn't making any more dirt, right?
Yeah.
So whatever you can do to get you a piece of the dirt, do that. You know, Now make sure you don't overextend yourself. I say this to all my buyers. I don't care how nice a house is if you're eating ramen noodles 4 nights a week.
Yeah,
right?
Not worth it.
No, it's not worth it. Living house poor is the worst thing you can do. Like, oh, look at this glorious home. Yay. It's shrimp ramen again. You know, it's just it's not worth the price, you know. So buy something that's inside your means. Allow it to appreciate, take the equity, roll it into something else, and then keep your payment where you were paying on the cheap end, but for a nicer home in a nicer neighborhood.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Now, this was back in the heyday when, as long as you had a pulse, you got a loan, and you might not have had to, give any proof of your income. But I can tell you that when we moved into this house, Kim and I were given we got the pre-approval. They pre-approved us for more than double of what our house cost. And and our one realtor friend was like, "You're not going to buy something more expensive than that?" It was crazy. Like, I think a lot of people do believe like, "Oh, we're approved for $600,000. well, then let's look for 610 and see if we can talk them down. Like, why? I don't know why people do that, but it is dangerous. I'm glad you give that advice.
Well, it's not about the price, right? It's not about the interest rate. It's not what you buy it for. It is the monthly payment, like the bill that shows up every single month. And how does that fit in your family budget? Because I don't care if you buy $100,000, a $500,000, $1 million home, right? If you can't afford that monthly payment, don't do it.
Right.
It makes no sense. I cannot advocate for that.
Well, even afford, to your point earlier, if you can afford it, but it's going to strap you and you're going to be miserable, think twice. Yeah.
And so I tell them, look, I'm not renting one of these bedrooms from you, so don't depend on me to help you with this payment. You know, you gotta have a few laughs along the way because it's a stressful thing looking at houses, making offers, what have you. And I was like, think of yourself. Plus, if you're young and you're in your child making years, children are expensive.
Right.
I mean, people cannot imagine the cost of babies. And as glorious as they are, I've got 2 beautiful children myself. They cost me an arm and a leg. So when you buy a house, make sure that you can think about all the other expenses, not only that you've got that day, but what you're going to have next year and 5 years down the road.
Yeah, and if you have them play hockey, you're going to have to get a renter for that house.
Brother, not only does my boy play the most expensive sport on the planet, he is the most expensive position on the planet. My boy is
outstanding.
He's a goalie on his travel hockey team.
Right. Yeah.
And it's glorious, and I love, like, we're a hockey family, but at the same time, dear Lord, man, don't do anything. He broke his leg pad. And he's like, I think I need new leg pads. I was like, I think you need duct tape.
Yeah, right. We know the mystery and power of duct tape.
This is going to get you through the end of the year, and hopefully you grow 6 inches, by that time. So there's a reason to buy you new pads, or guess what you're wearing next year? Duct tape goalie pads.
Funny.
Yeah.
Now, Chris asked you a little bit, maybe I'm framing this in a little different way, but in one of our other podcasts, I talked about one of Kim's coworkers who we thought he was kind of crazy because he lived in a really nice area of town here and he had 2 young boys and he turned their basement into a hockey rink.
Yeah, I have one of those.
Yeah, I mean, have you seen, of course, that guy, his 2 kids play in the NHL now, but have you seen, so he probably got a good return on his.
That's a solid return on the drywall dings that you're going to have from that. Yeah.
Have you seen some weird stuff where you're like, wow, this is absolutely tailored to this one person?
Oh, gymnasiums. I mean, just bodybuilder style gymnasiums in basements. I've seen the coffee area of people's houses where they bring in French presses and just have all the bells and whistles. I don't even know. How would you even operate this? You know what I mean?
Me. I'm not the one to ask.
No, but the kitchen is should be a coffee bean.
Yeah,
It's that and a refrigerator where I would assume you keep your special roasted Bavarian beans or whatever it is. I have no idea.
There's enough foodies and coffee nuts out there that in the right market, that might actually be a huge benefit. Not to me, but to people who are into the coffee and things like that.
Well, there's all kinds of things. I mean, swimming pool areas, people have got just these elaborate patios, multi-level decks and outdoor living spaces and what have you. You'll find some odd contraptions in people's bedrooms. Now, when we're going through houses, I tell people, like, listen, we're here to look at the house, so don't be bashful. Open up closets, open up cabinets.
Oh, wow.
But do not ever get in people's bedside tables or dressers. You don't want to know what they keep in there, right? And this is strictly adhered to, right? I don't touch their personal things because likely you're going to judge them, and you may want to buy the house even more and overpay from what you see, or it might turn you off and you tuck tail and run, which is more likely the case.
Is it normal to have a swing over the bed? I don't know.
What do these latches do? Yeah, no.
Just walk away.
Right.
Walk
No,
away.
So there's that hidden 50 Shades of Grey room, like behind the closet or something.
Oh, dear Lord. Have I ever told you that story? So I go on this listing appointment, and this lady is nice. Like, just seems like a normal lady. There's 4 kids running around in the yard, and we're just walking through the house. We go down in the basement, and in the basement, there is a room that's got 3 padlocks on it. I'm talking master lock style. And I was, the rest of the house is all normal and what have you. And I was like, well, what's in there? And she says, well, no one's allowed to go in there. And, well, ma'am, if we're going to have people sell your house, people are going to want to know what a quarter of the basement is doing. And she's like, okay, I'll let you in, but please don't judge me. I'm all ears. Show me what you got, So she unlocks all the padlocks and lets me in there. And as the door opens, pink neon lights flood out of the room.
Oh, wow.
Well, as we go into the room, over in the corner is a cage the size of a human, right? And this is a human cage. There are 3 shelves along 2 walls that are all a few feet apart, all of which have thigh-high boots on them, just one after the next, all of which had different heels on the bottom. So there's all these thigh-high boots. On the 3rd wall, it's whips, chains, ball gags. There are, I mean, this is a grown-up podcast, right? I mean,
You can say whatever you
there
mean.
are dildos by the dozen. You know
Oh
what I
my
mean?
gosh.
Just lining the walls.
Do you have the address of this house?
Well, listen, I don't even know if she still lives there.
Okay, so what's the weird part?
Yeah, I'd never seen anything like that. But there's hooks that are hanging from the ceiling, which I can only imagine would feature some kind of swings or whatever else is going on. And so this is the most shocking thing.
Yeah.
I have no words in my mouth, so I just slow clap.
Yeah. Does all this stuff come with a house? Yeah.
No. What else do you say
Nothing
to
you
that?
can say to that.
She was an attractive lady, but I was like, I don't know. What I was able to get out of my mouth as we left the room, I said, "Don't let the khakis fool you. I'm sure that's fine."
I'd be like, you just made me realize how boring I really am.
I did not know I was so vanilla. Right? Dear Lord. No. So I slow clapped. I applauded and went on about my merry way.
That's awesome. Well, hey, thank you very much for sharing some real estate stories with us. This is the time of the episode where I ask Chris, what have we learned?
Yeah, I learned that when my house gets infested with fleas,
Yeah.
I can always sell it to Dave.
That's true. Yeah.
True.
We'll make sure to get his information out there. I learned that when Kim and I do sell this house, to not look at the other names she's gone under. I just won't do it. It's just not worth the questions. I'll
It
leave
might
it
say
alone.
Kieran on that page.
It's
Be careful.
very possible.
Nod and smile.
Or it might need a second page. That's what I'm worried about. All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us today, Dave. Again, I'm Scott McLaughlin
I'm Chris Kiernan.
saying we'll see you at work.
Thank you for listening to the Not in the Job Description podcast. If you have a story you'd like to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast, please let us know by sending us an email with a brief description of your story to stories@notinthejob.com.